Hey everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you are new. My name is Tonya, and today we're going to be talking about the 8 books that I read during the month of December. Overall, it was a really good reading month for me. I read 7 physical or ebooks, and then I had one that I listened to as an audiobook. I did read a little bit of the one I'm counting as an audiobook, but I listened to more of it than I read, so I decided to just count it in the audiobook category. So it was a great way to round out my year of reading. So go ahead, grab yourself a tasty beverage, maybe a little snack, sit back and relax, and let's talk about some books. And then just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. So for 2025, my reading goal I had just set at 50 books, but I think I ended up around 67 to 70-ish books that I actually ended up reading. I'm not always the best about tracking the audiobooks, so I'm pretty sure we were in that 67 to 70 book range. And for 2026, I set my goal for 72 books because I think that's really doable and something that will still challenge me, but I can still also meet pretty easily as well. And then as far as the books that I read in December, I read a total of 3,411 pages. I had 2 5-star reads. I had 1 2-star read. And then for that audiobook, that was 24 hours and 30 minutes of listening time. So with all that being said and out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the books. So the first book we're going to talk about is Brimstone by Callie Hart. This is the one that I listened to in the month of December. Like I said, I read part of it as well, but I listened to the majority of it just because I absolutely love the narration that goes along with this series. And I did absolutely love this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars, and we pick up in the book right where Quicksilver has left off. I won't give you a ton of information about this book just because if you haven't read Quicksilver yet, I don't want to ruin it for you. One of the things I love the most about Brimstone is the way that Callie Hart handles her character interactions and builds, layer upon layer in this particular world that we're in. It is a very detailed world. It's very unique. And there's a few different things that go along with the magic system. There are people called alchemists who they can work with different metals, and that's kind of their magic. And then the Fae themselves all have different forms of magic. It can be a variety of different things. It can be, from elemental to healing, creating bolts of energy, just a wide variety of things. So there is a lot of magic that takes place in this world, and Callie Hart does a really good job describing the magic, making you feel like you understand how it's being used, and using it in ways that make sense to the story and to the world. Another thing I really enjoyed about this is we continued to get to know some of our side characters a little bit better. Carrion Swift is one of those side characters, and he is one of my favorites in the entire series. He is the one-liner king. He has a particularly good one in this book when he says something about horns. If you know, you know. It was one of my favorite parts of the book. I laughed out loud. And that being said, there was times in this book where I cried also. And, there's just a lot of emotional depth to all of the characters, and you really get a feel for their relationship as well. And we did also get a lot more romance development in this book, which I also really appreciated. And then, of course, at the end, the ish hits the fan. We find out our characters have been keeping certain things from each other, and it really sets us up for the next book. So really enjoyed this one. It was a 4.5 star for me, and I will most definitely be continuing this series. Now let's get into the books that I either read on my Kindle or read physically. The first one we're going to talk about is The Wolf King by Lauren Pelfreyman, and this was my first 5-star read of the month. I did love it. We're following a princess named Aurora, and she witnesses a kind of gladiator-style fight between two wolves. In her particular realm, the humans are the ones that are in charge. There are wolf shifters, but to a certain extent, they are under the rule of the human king, and they really mistreat the wolf shifters. They make them do these fights. They kind of just try to keep beating them down, not help their people out, essentially treat them like secondary citizens. And as Aurora is watching this fight between a alpha wolf and then a younger wolf, she cannot sit there and watch this goes on, so she ends up getting the fight stopped, which saves this younger wolf's life. From there, things kind of develop. She ends up getting kidnapped by that alpha male that was in the fight with the younger wolf and taken off to their city in the north where the rest of the wolf shifters live. And a romance ensues from there. Now, this is a love triangle, so, we don't get a full feel for who's actually going to be the love interest. There is two of them. They are vastly different. We have one named Callum, who is kind of the clean-cut leader, good at heart, that she saw in the fighting ring. And then we have Blake, who is a little more on the sinister, darker, morally gray scale. And he's my favorite. I hope that Blake is the one that Aurora ends up with. But that's kind of the basic setup of the book. And even though I'm saying that this book was a 5-star read for me, it wasn't a 5-star read because the writing was completely perfect or the world was 100% unique. But what it was fun. It was exciting. There was some good plot twist in there. And I just really enjoyed reading it. I made it through the book in like 2 days. I didn't want to put it down. So even though, like I said, it maybe wasn't the strongest writing, but the storytelling, which to me is one of the most important parts of the book, that was point on. And I just wanted to know what was going to happen next and devoured this book. And I would say if you like wolf shifters, if you like not a run-of-the-mill romance and books that kind of have like a Highlander or Outlander Scottish feel, then you're going to like this series and I would pick it up. The second book in the series, The Night Prince, I think that's already out, and then there's supposed to be a third book as well, so I will be continuing this series. It was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. Then next, I read The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and this one I enjoyed way more than I thought I was going to. Cozy fantasy, it's hit and miss for me, but I really actually like this one. I gave it a 3.75, just because with a cozy fantasy, the pacing tends to be on the slower side. So there was a couple of points throughout the book where it dragged a little bit, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Very heartwarming story. We're following a librarian who has really kind of turned into herself. She's not a people person. She hasn't spent a lot of time with people in a number of years. Most of her time has been spent in the library with her books, as well as a sentient spider plant named Kaz, who is one of my favorite characters in the book. But it ends up, there's a revolution that happens, and they're tearing down the Capitol. Someone starts to burn the library, so she has to escape with all of the books that are in the library. Now, what goes along with that is some of those books are magic books, and only certain people are allowed to do magic. Librarians are definitely on the list that are not allowed to do magic. So it's a chance for her to be taking these books with her. She ends up traveling back to an island where she grew up as a little girl and tries to settle in, figure out what she's going to do, and go from there. But a small island, small town life, people want to know who's living there, so her little bubble of not being around people gets burst, so she has to start trying to figure out how to interact with the different villagers that live on the island, as well as how she's going to support herself. Her answer to that ends up being to use forbidden magic and sell it through jam, which I know sounds kind of like a crazy thing, but that's kind of the point of this book. There's lots of things that probably couldn't happen in a standard story that, just flow really well right here. There is a budding love interest in this book as well. It's super sweet, very cute, no real spice to speak of. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I ended up picking up the second book in the series because I enjoyed this one so much. And yeah, if you're not a fan of cozy fantasy, I would say this one is still worth the try because there is enough plot and character dialogue. It's not super slow, and there is a point to the story. So yeah, even if you're not typically a cozy fantasy fan, I would give this one a go. So I definitely found it to be worth the read. I think I finished this one in like a day and a half. It moves really quick. It's only like 375 pages, and it's a nice palate cleanser. If you've just finished something, that has left you crying in a corner, then this would be a good brain break for you to pick up next. Then next up, we have Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne, and this is the second book in the Bloodsworn saga, and I gave this book a 4.5. The first book was a 4.0. Like I said, I gave this one a 4.5, and then I did pick up the third book in the series in January, which I'll let you know my thoughts on that one when I post my wrap-up for January. But this is a great epic fantasy series. John Gwynne does an amazing job with building a unique world and characters that you really want to get to know. We are essentially following 3 different characters, and they're separate in the first book. And then in the second book here, they start to kind of come together, but I don't want to go into too much detail about this book. The basic premise of this series is, in this particular land, there were great gods at one point, but they weren't very nice gods. They did a lot of terrible things, and they ended up killing each other off, with the exception of one god who was imprisoned and has been imprisoned under the ground in an unknown location for hundreds and hundreds of years at this point. And people, they don't want the gods back because they, like I said, they were so terrible, they don't want to have anything to do with them. There are individuals that still have the blood of the gods in them, and those are called tainted individuals. They are looked down upon. This blood of the gods basically gives them like an enhanced strength, better fighting skills, better endurance, and some individuals it also gives magical powers to as well. As I said, these people are looked down upon. They are collared, they are abused, they are made to do things they do not want to do by the untainted individuals in the land. So it's not a great existence if you do have this tainted blood. And as this is an epic fantasy, there is, of course, a big bad that our characters have to defeat in order to save the realm. There are definitely plot twists that I did not expect that happened in this book, and that is something else that John Gwynne does really well. Also, I will say a little bit on the negative side. This is a Norse-inspired, Germanian tribe-inspired world, so there are some difficult names and language in it. John Gwynne does provide a glossary and a pronunciation guide. Typically, when the names are really hard, I give up on the pronunciation and I just make it up in my head, and that's what I go with, whether that is right or wrong. But that is something else to keep in mind. Don't let that intimidate you from a book like this. No one's going to know if you pronounce it incorrectly. So don't get so caught up on the names. Just let the story and the characters speak for the book, and you will definitely enjoy this one. Then next up, we're going to talk about my second 5-star read of the month. That was The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. And I had an arc of this book. By the time you see this video, it will be out. The release date, I believe, is January 20th. And this one is definitely worth picking up and reading. As I said, I gave this book 5 stars. It is tragically beautiful. It is devastating. There are a lot of dark topics that do take place in this book. So you're definitely going to want to check out the trigger warnings. But even with that all being said, it was just such a good book with such lyrical storytelling. The world is unique in the fact that the magic system is poetry. So women are not allowed to do this kind of magic. They're not taught to read. They don't want them to have any chance to be able to use this magic. Unless you're one of the upper class, then you don't have access to this magic either. This particular realm, the majority of the people are very poor, and the poor, they often can't read. They just have very little schooling, and there's no way for them to really access this magic without being able to read and write. So I thought that was really unique. And this magic system does make for some poetic moments in the book. We're following a young woman named Wei, and she lives in a very poor community. She's lost several of her siblings to famine and disease, and her family and her town, they just aren't doing very well. The ruling house of this particular realm is called the Azalea House, and an announcement comes out that one of the princes from this house is looking for a bride and some concubines. And Wei decides that the best way she can help out her family is to try to become one of these concubines. She doesn't have a lot of experience with men. She doesn't really know what she's getting herself into. And this particular prince, he is not nice. He has a reputation for torturing people and animals and just doing a lot of terrible things. But in the end, she thinks if she can get in his good graces, get in the palace, then maybe there's a chance for her and her family to have a better life than they currently do. Now, as I said, there are a lot of very dark topics in this book. There is talks of abuse, there's alcohol abuse, there is child abuse, there is SA. So there's just a lot of really dark topics entwined into this lyrical kind of poetic story. So this was an amazing read for me. Like I said, it did devastate me at times and rip my heart out. I cried a good portion of the last probably 40% of the book. But that's kind of the thing about this kind of book. It makes you feel something. It reminds you that you're a human. And that's just one of the things that makes reading so special. So if you get a chance, definitely grab this one. But be prepared to cry. Then next up, we're going to talk about another arc that I read in December, and that is Arcane Inheritance by Camilla Cole. And unfortunately, this one was my 2-star read. Now, that being said, don't let that deter you from picking this book up if it sounds interesting to you. It could be a book that you love that I just didn't enjoy. Reading is, after all, subjective. So in this book, we're following a young woman named Ellery, and she is 21 years old. She's just now starting her freshman year at Warren University. She had to delay going to college in order to work and kind of help her family and support them and to gather enough money to be able to attend school. She ended up getting a scholarship that she wasn't expecting and was able to start attending what is a more prestigious university. And when she gets there, there's a young man named Hudson that they kind of butt heads right away. He is a little bit of an ass to her when they first meet. And then from there, they kind of become academic rivals. And as Ellery is at this university, strange things start to happen. She starts to have these feelings of deja vu, like she's been in a situation before, or she'll be out walking and it'll seem like the entire landscape changes and she no longer knows where she is. There's lots of different things going on. This is dark academia. There is some occult references in it. And all of those things I thought sounded like they would be right up my alley. And I will say the premise of the story is really good. Where I couldn't really get through it is Ellery comes off as being super young, almost more of a teenager than someone who is 21 years old, has supposedly been out in the world, making it on her own, working a full-time job, her and Hudson's relationship, I mean, there's parts of it like she's telling him how he stinks or he's smelly or he should go take a shower. And I don't know why college students would be talking to each other this way. So their relationship does evolve as the book goes on, but I was really put off of it just from that kind of tone of the book, and it almost felt like you're watching Mean Girls or something like that. It just felt really immature to me. So it wasn't my favorite, but if you do like dark academia and some occult settings, then maybe give it a try. It just wasn't for me. Next up, we're going to talk about my one holiday romance that I read, and that was Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. And I'm not usually like a contemporary romance kind of gal. I read mostly fantasy, but this one does have a paranormal twist in it because our main character, Harriet, is being haunted by the ghost of Christmas past, whose name is Nolan. He is Irish, and he is very dreamy, and it was just a really cute holiday romance. Harriet has kind of been looked down upon by her family and has really had to learn how to make her own way in the world, make her life how she wants it, even with kind of strained family relationships. And Nolan and Harriet can't really figure out why he's supposed to be haunting her, because typically anyone that Nolan gets assigned to haunt during the holidays, they aren't very nice people, and Harriet is a nice person to her core. She's a people pleaser, so they're not really sure what's going on. And this one was just really cute. It did have a nice message about being your true self, not what you think other people want you to be. And I gave it a 3.75, which I think is a really good rating for a holiday romance. It would have been a 4-star for me. There was a bit at the end with Harriet's aunt that I didn't really understand why it was in there. It kind of detracted from the actual storyline. And since it left me slightly confused about why she was inserted there, I ended up at a 3.75. So if you do like a good paranormal romance, then this would be a good one to pick up next holiday season. Then the final book I read this month was Kingdom of Claw by Demi Winters, and this is the second book in the Ashen series. The first book is called The Road of Bones. I gave that one 5 stars. This one was a 4.25 for me. There's a couple little pacing things that kind of dropped it out of that 5-star range for me, but still really love the book. It ended on a cliffhanger, as most series do, so I definitely will be continuing to the third book. So this book is kind of Viking inspired, and in this particular realm, there was a big rebellion where someone who calls themselves the Bear King came in, attacked everyone, and took over the kingdom. And when he took over the kingdom, he outlawed people being able to do magic. Certain individuals are just born with the ability to do magic. It isn't really like spell oriented or anything like that. It is just an ability that a person can have. And once this Bear King came in, he outlawed having this magic. So if you are found to have it, you are forcibly taken, tied to a post, and you get stoned to death. Not a great thing for anyone to find out you had magical abilities. Well, Scylla's mother, for some reason, which Scylla is not sure, she got accused of having magic and was stoned. And ever since then, Scylla and her father just kind of travel around from village to village. Whenever it seems like the authorities of that village start to pay too close attention to them, or someone's found to be using magic, then her and her father, they just move on to the next village. And that's how Scylla's life has been going ever since her mother died. Well, in the particular village that they're living in now, one of these stonings ends up taking place. So Scylla's father decides it's time for them to move on, but this time they're going to travel further north. There's some safe houses up there where he thinks he and Scylla can stay for a while and just continue to kind of live under the radar. As they're traveling to this city in the north, within just, a few miles of the village, Scylla's father ends up being killed, and she finds out that the queen of this particular kingdom is actually looking for her, trying to hunt her down and bring her to the castle. Scylla is, of course, very scared about this idea. She doesn't know why the queen wants her, and she ends up deciding that she wants to continue with her father's plan and try to travel up to the north and get to this safe house. So she ends up stowing away with some mercenaries, and they of course find her, but in the end they do agree to let her travel with them, and things kind of develop from there. So in this particular book, we're still following Scylla and one of those mercenaries whose name is Ray. Scylla ends up finding out that she has a sister. She thought the sister may have passed away, but it ends up she hasn't. And we do get that sister's point of view in this book as well. Her name is Saga, and I really felt like Saga's point of view added another layer of complexity, both emotionally and just to the world in general. So I did really like getting her viewpoint in this book. And there was, of course, a quite unexpected cliffhanger at the end of this book that kind of applied to both Scylla and Saga. So I can't wait to see how that kind of comes into play in the third book. The third book comes out in February. I do have an arc of that one, so it's called Dawn of the North, so hopefully I can get to that in January, and then I'll let you know my thoughts on it. If I don't get to it in January, then I at least want to read it early February, so definitely will be continuing with the series. And if you do like romantasy that has a little bit more of a unique plot line, then I would say this would be a good series for you. Alright, so that is everything that I read in the month of December. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them, or you can let me know what your favorite book that you read in the month of December was. If you don't know what to leave me in the comments, just leave me a star, because we are all reading superstars here. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care, keep reading, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!